Welcome, everyone. Welcome to what we had planned as the October meeting of the Civilian Oversight Commission of Los Angeles County. We will not be able to conduct an official meeting today because the commission lacks a quorum of 5 members. While we can count to 4, we cannot count to 5. And I'm apologizing on behalf of the commission for that lack of quorum, which mitigates, in fact, truncates our ability to function as a commission. However, as in many other public forums that this commission has held, we are able to receive information from the public. We are able to have discussions about issues of concern to the community and that touch on the mission and purpose of this commission. And I want to thank the commissioners who are present with us today. I want to thank in particular Brenda Rodriguez Perez, who is with us here today from the County Council. And I want to thank the members of the LASD rank and file and command staff who are here with us today. While we do not have Sheriff Luna with us, we do have representatives of the department, and I'm looking forward to their ability to engage in a discussion today. While not official business, it is open to the public. As we get started, I just want to note that we can take comments from public listening remotely and here in person. And we also can take public comment from people here who are doing work in the community on issues germane to the work of this commission. I want to say a special welcome today to the members of the Civil Grand Jury of Los Angeles County who are here with us today. Can you please raise your hands? Thank you so much. Thank you for your presence here today, and thank you for your work, shining a light and, where necessary, blowing a whistle. And I want to recognize the OIG staff who are here with us, along with the staff of the COC. With that, I want to ask, are there any other housekeeping notes that we have for members of the public joining us remotely?
Not at this time, Chair. We turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. With that, with the note that we can receive information and that there may be some items that we might discuss as informational items and discussions, I want to ask if the executive director has any recommendations of issues that she would like to prioritize for discussion here at this forum. I think this will be a relatively brief gathering here today, but I do want to take advantage of the fact that people have joined us from all over Los Angeles County, indeed are joining us from all over Los Angeles County remotely. And I think there are some important updates that we can provide about some of the progress being made in our work for civilian oversight, not just here in Los Angeles County, but also statewide in California. With that, I want to ask, do any commissioners have any points of discussion or items for our public forum here today that they would like to raise as a top priority? Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
before we move further, can we please provide the public with the public comment rules and the code of conduct?
Absolutely, yes. Please proceed.
Thank you. To ensure a productive meeting for all, please follow the code of conduct that is posted to our left on the white sign over here in the room. Speakers must cease speaking when their time has ended. Public comment is related to items that are referenced and must stop speaking when their time has ended. Please remain respectful and refrain from profane, personal, threatening, derogatory, demeaning, or abusive statements. Be respectful of the views expressed by the speakers, staff, and commission members, and do not disrupt the orderly conduct of the meeting. A person engaging in conduct that disrupts the meeting is subject to being muted or removed from the meeting. Now, I will go over the guidelines for making public comment. Those wishing to speak in person, please turn in your public comment card at the sign that is to my right on the table. You'll find forms if you have not picked up one. Those attending this meeting remotely, please raise your hand in the WebEx feature. If you're on the phone, please press *3. Each person called uh, will have up to 2 minutes to speak on the items referenced in the meeting today. Non-agenda or non-public items will be heard at the end of the meeting. At this time, I will turn it over to my colleague, Robert, who will give the rules in Spanish.
Buenos días. Le damos la bienvenida a esta reunión a miembros de la comunidad que hablan español. No tenemos un intérprete, pero todavía puedes hacer comentarios públicos. Sus comentarios serán traducidos al inglés para la comisión después de la reunión. Si quieres un intérprete en el futuro, puedes enviar una solicitud por teléfono o correo electrónico 48 horas antes de nuestras reuniones. Si desea hablar en persona, completa una tarjeta en la mesa que dice comentarios públicos. Si desea hablar por WebEx, levante la mano en WebEx o presione *3 en su teléfono. Simplemente diga la palabra español antes de comenzar y le diremos cómo proceder. Le daremos 2 minutos para comentarios públicos. Gracias.
Thank you, Robert. With that, I want to ask, are there any public comments that are waiting online who have raised their hand or indicated that they would like to address this forum, this community forum hosted by members of the Civilian Oversight Commission? Are there any such public comments requesting consideration up front?
Yes, we have one online public comment from C and one in person.
Okay.
C, you have been unmuted. C, you have been unmuted.
We can come back to that. Is there a public comment in person of a
We're going to move on to our in-person public comment from Vanessa Perez. Vanessa, if you could please take the mic. 2 minutes.
Good morning, everybody here. I just want to say real quick, subpoena power is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And as illustrated by the beating of Joseph Perez, Joseph was brutally beaten by seven members of Industry Station, and also known as the Deputy Gang, Industry Indians. LASD has classified the use of force as within policy, and that's impossible because Joseph got 30 staples and stitches to his head, to his face and his ears. That's impossible for it to be a Category 2 when it should have been a Category 3. Without subpoena power, the Civilian Oversight Commission has no ability to access the internal records that explain how LASD reached to that conclusion. That means no one outside the department, not this body, not the public, and not me, his mother, can meaningfully review or challenge what happened. Without it, oversight bodies are forced to trust the word of their very department that are meant to be held accountable. This is not hypothetical. It's just the last 2 years, 3 LASD use of force incidents that the department found within policy later led to federal civil rights convictions. The internal review system is broken. Without subpoena power, this commission is powerless to see behind the curtain. When voters passed Measure R, they were very clear. They wanted real independent oversight. That means having access to records, including confidential ones in cases like Joseph's and Emmett Brock's. When LASD ALADS and POPA and county council fight the subpoenas, they're not just resisting transparency, they're actively undermining the will of 1.3 million voters. Joseph's case isn't just one story. It's a warning about what happens when violent, unaccountable systems get to police itself. Subpoena power is how we break that cycle. And once again, I want to thank this commission for everything you have done.
There are no further public comments.
All right. With that, I want to recognize not only the comments by Ms. Perez, but also the huge step forward that we've taken here in California just in this month with the signing by Governor Newsom of AB 847, landmark legislation really to compel the disclosure of records with oversight commissions at the county level while protecting confidentiality of those records in cases where civilian oversight commissions seek those records as part of an investigation into possible misconduct or other concerns raised by civilian oversight commissions. You know, as we've noted at prior official meetings of the COC, this power was recognized by the legislature in 2020, which took effect in January of 2021. But nonetheless, we've had ongoing litigation over the recognized authority of civilian oversight commissions to subpoena records necessary to investigations. Now, with the enactment of AB 847 on October 6th, just a little over 2 weeks ago, that power, that authority, that obligation, that step forward for transparency and for trustworthy law enforcement with the help and partnership of civilian oversight commissions at the county level has taken a great step forward. And so the concern, indeed, the moral cry that Ms. Perez made in her comments just now has been answered by us, by the legislature of California, and by the governor with the enactment of AB 847. And that subpoena power has been granted now and recognized. And we are very proud that the experience of this Oversight Commission and of families who have testified before us, dozens and dozens of families whose statements have been part of the record of community forums and official meetings of this commission, has been answered with legislation to meet that obligation and to meet that request to be able to do the work of civilian oversight. So I just want to note that that is a step forward that we've all taken, benefiting all Californians in just this last month. And I want to thank the members of the commission who are here, who were part of that big step forward, and some of whom were able to join in a social and ceremonial celebration of that step forward just 9 days ago, 1 week to the hour after the signing of that legislation. I want to thank Commissioner Cooper. I want to thank Commissioner Newhouse. I want to thank Commissioner Callaway, co-vice chair. And I want to thank the staff of the COC who was part of the work to put the facts on the record that guided the legislature and that guided the governor. It would be a mistake to argue that the facts as we have experienced them and the litigation, including the lawsuit against this COC by the sheriff trying to block those subpoenas, was part of the legislative record and part of the discussion in the Assembly, in the Senate, and with the governor and his staff. And that was part of the factor in enacting and signing this legislation. So this is a step forward that we hope to build on. And I'm hoping that in future work, in official meetings of this commission, we can take those steps forward, especially on January 1st, 2026, when the provisions of this new state law come into full force. With that, I want to recognize any other comments by commissioners about this big step forward that we're marking here and that we hope to mark at our future official meetings?
Good morning. Good morning. I just want to say all the work that was done to make this legislation come to reality. It's a win-win for everyone. It's a win for us, it's a win for the public, and a win for the sheriff department. Because we cannot get things done if we're not united and working for the same purpose, which is for the citizens of Los Angeles. So I just want to thank everyone for everything that has been done, because we have a job to do, and we must not lose focus of what the job is, and that is to take care of the people in this community. And we must work together to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. Any other comments? Please, Commissioner Newhouse.
I will be very brief, but I think we all need to thank the chair, Chair Johnson, and of course, Robert Bonner, who worked tirelessly to get this thing before the governor, out of the legislature and before the governor, and get it signed. And our chair was very supportive of that effort. So I had nothing to do with it, but my support of the chair in getting it done. And thank you, Hans, for the work that you did.
Ninth member of this body, which we expect to be able to bring forward a recommendation for that nomination or for filling that vacancy by December. We're making great progress. We have 11 interviews with candidates that are being scheduled for early next month. And I just wanted to make note that we are making good progress in the consideration of applicants for our 9th seat, which happens to be one of the 4 community appointments on this commission. And we look forward, I hope, to being able to make perhaps a happy announcement, at least by our January meeting, given that this recommendation does need to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. It isn't just an issue of our commission being able to take an official action to ratify that finalist. It has to be approved and formally appointed by the Board of Supervisors. So I want to thank Commissioner Callaway for work on that ad hoc of the commission, and wanted to make sure that the public was aware of progress in filling that vacancy.
Chair Johnson, I just wanted to also thank the staff for going through all of the candidates who applied. So thank you, Nune and Tracy.
Yes, through 2 rounds of applicants, the process of screening and culling and bringing to the attention of commissioners for orderly review is a weighty purpose. And I just want to thank you for the very capable screening and intake that you've done through 2 rounds of applicants. With that, I think we can shift gears to talking about 2 sets of updates that the commission was anxious in our deliberations to bring to the public when we have our official meetings, and to incorporate updates in 2 areas on a regular basis. Those 2 areas are settlement agreements affecting LASD and the process of meet and confer negotiations with the labor partners of the LASD. These are 2 important areas affecting the functioning, the operations of the department, and of high priority public requests for progress with the department. Today, first, we're going to be discussing one of the areas of progress, which is in the area of settlement agreements. And I think we have a discussion queued up with some of our friends and colleagues from the LASD who are here in an informational capacity to share an update about the settlement agreement affecting the Antelope Valley. And again, when we have official meetings of the Civilian Oversight Commission, I hope that the public can tune in, and I hope that you can now ask questions about the status of the various settlement agreements. We hope to be a forum for those updates and to bring some transparency to progress and areas of remaining concern where maybe there has not been as much progress. But in the area of the Antelope Valley Settlement Agreement, I think there is some noteworthy progress to report here. So I want to ask, do we have someone from LASD who's able to provide us an update on the Antelope Valley Settlement Agreement?
Yes, Chair Johnson, we do have with us from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Captain Joshua Bardon from Palmdale Station. And we also have with us Lieutenant Hicks, and he is with us from the DOJ Office of Constitutional Policing.
All right, welcome, and please proceed.
Good morning, Commission, and good morning, community. It's a pleasure to be here to be able to discuss to you guys the progress that's going on in the Antelope Valley. I am Lieutenant Ray Hicks, and I oversee the Office of Constitutional Policing's Compliance Unit. I also have with me Captain from Palmdale Station, Joshua Barden. And then I also have online with us from our federal monitoring team, Georgina McDowell. So I'm going to start off with her before we get into the slide. So if you can
Yes, Georgina, can you hear us?
Yes, hi. Good morning. Buenos dias. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some updates on the settlement agreement. You're going to hear some details coming from Captain Barden and Lieutenant Hicks. Just by way of background, I want to just let everybody know that the monitoring team and in fact the settlement agreement has been going on for about 10 years. And since 2015, there are 8 key areas that the settlement agreement oversees. Those include stops, seizures, and searches, bias-free policing, enforcement of Section 8 compliance, data collection and analysis, community engagement, use of force, personnel complaint review, and accountability. Over the last 10 years, a lot has happened, but the most, I think, substantial have occurred in the last 2 years. And I say that because under this administration, there have been some sweeping changes. One of them has been the creation by Sheriff Luna of the Office of Constitutional Policing. And this is where Lieutenant Hicks is a representative of. This office is department-wide and is led by Director Eileen Decker, who is in charge of all the settlement agreements, not just this one that is covering the Antelope Valley and in particular the Lancaster and Palmdale stations. The monitoring team is led by 2 court-appointed monitors, Dr. Angela Wolf and Mr. Joe Brand. With them, I myself, as one of the members of the monitoring team, that are diverse subject matters experts that deal with different parts of the settlement agreement. I have the privilege of working directly with the community and community engagement sections. And I do want to let you all know that as the monitoring team, we do have a number of different court-required responsibilities. Those include conducting audits and outcome assessments, providing technical assistance, not just to the department, but to the CAC as well. We also submit reports to the court twice a year in which we provide progress on implementation, identify any barriers that may be present in reaching compliance for the LASD. And all of these reports are public. They are found on our website, which I can happily provide on the chat. And through that website, you can read all 20 of our semi-annual reports where there are details on the progress and the barriers and movements by the LASD since the beginning. There's also an opportunity for folks to reach out directly to the monitors through this website. Now, the settlement agreement includes 212 paragraphs. It's a 58-page document. So knowing that we are limited in time, I did just, again, want to say kudos to the LASD, honestly, for the last 2 years, having made a tremendous amount of progress. Sheriff Luna's administration has made a concerted effort really to take several of these settlement agreement requirements department-wide. You're going to hear some of them from Barden and Hicks. The scope, again, is limited to Palmdale and Lancaster, but for example, one of the things that you're going to hear about is the department's effort of using the community engagement requirements to go department-wide and not just the Antelope Valley. Really, these type of sweeping changes for a department as large as LASD has to come from the top. So because Sheriff Luna is really looking at this in a comprehensive fashion and understanding that you can't piecemeal change, he's really leaning into the 21st century policing pillars, which include the sense of procedural justice, that include bias-free policing and constitutional policing and meaningful, deep engagement with the community. Because of this, we've been able to observe as a neutral third party that there's been much more buy-in from different and all levels of the leadership from the department in the last 2 years. They've also had a 2-captain system that has been implemented in the Lancaster and Palmdale departments or stations. And this is new because they have 2 captains, one of which focuses on operations, which is a little bit more outward looking, and the other captain gets to focus on administrative, which is a little bit more inward looking and facing. They have now crime stats dashboards, which are public and allows you to really look at the numbers and increases the transparency. And with transparency and accountability comes the building of that community trust. You'll hear more from Hicks, so I won't get too much into it, but there has been some meaningful community engagement that's been done in the stations. Both Hicks and Captain Barden will be able to speak to that. In terms of actual compliance, I'm happy to say that, yes, it has taken a while, but again, in these last, especially 2 years, the LASD, in terms of the Antelope Valley Settlement Agreement, is very close to compliance. In fact, other than a few provisions, all of them which are in the complaints section, all the non-compliance is only found in the complaint section. All the rest are in compliance, be it partial or substantial. Sustained, excuse me. So partial means that they are on their way and have to reach compliance and have taken steps to get to that level. Sustained compliance means that they have reached compliance and have been able to maintain the requirements to get to that compliance for at least 1 year. So the majority of use of force and community engagement are all in compliance minus some training, which is still in partial compliance. For example, bias-free policing is in partial compliance. Data collection and analysis, those are mostly impartial, some in compliance as well. And accountability is mostly impartial with some in compliance. We work very closely with the Department of Justice and with the LASD to ensure that we're identifying the causes or the reasons why there hasn't been full compliance, and we're there to help as well. We are all united in the sense that the community of Los Angeles and Antelope Valley in this particular case deserve to have a fair and constitutional policing stations, and we have that same goal, right? So with that, we offer the technical assistance of working very closely with their internal AAB, which is Audits and Accountability Bureau, which again, in the last 2 years has been empowered to do independent reviews and audits of the stations outside even of just AV, so beyond the AV, and been able to provide concrete feedback to the captains where there's areas of concern and where there's areas that need working on. Because ultimately, the monitoring team, our job is to make sure that the requirements of the settlement agreement are completed and met, and then we leave. Ultimately, we want all the efforts and requirements of the settlement agreement to live on and to be sustained by the department itself. And where we currently stand, we see that at least in the Antelope Valley, they are very much in the process of doing that.
Ms. McDowell, where are you located?
Sure, I'm located in Salinas, California. So I get to fly down or drive down to the Antelope Valley frequently, where I've met with the community, where I've worked with the CAC, and where I've done ride-alongs and met a number of community members again and working with the station directly. So
And
up in Monterey County, for those who aren't familiar with Salinas.
And over what duration have you been part of the monitoring team?
Approximately 5 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Maddow. Just as she was explaining that we work very closely with our partners. We see them as partners, our oversight when it comes to the settlement agreement. We're looking to affect change, not just in the Antelope Valley, but also throughout the whole entire department. So a lot of this will take time as we try to position this throughout the rest of the department. Next slide, please. So as you guys see from this first slide, we are going to be touching on key items that are within the settlement agreement. So I'm not going to be up here too much longer. I'm just going to touch on a few key aspects because a lot of this is the hard work and efforts of the stations, the station captains, as well as the deputies that are out there that are doing the hard work of this. So as Ms. McDowell is explaining, we are in partial to full compliance when it comes to stops and searches. Bias-free policing, we're in sustained compliance when it comes into the training. Section 8, we're in sustained compliance in the totality of that achievement. Data collection and analysis, we're into partial and full compliance. Just like she explained, when it came to the partial, we are in motion with that. So we are in the right track to be able to obtaining that compliance status. And community engagement, which you're going to hear a lot of that with Captain Barden, is we're in almost in sustained compliance with every aspect of community engagement. There's a few things that we're still working on to get into compliance with, but we are on track of accomplishing that. Use of force, we are in compliance in policy and training, partial in implementation. When it comes to the training, we have to get everyone trained up and into Antelope Valley to be able to hit that compliance, which we're on track on doing. When it comes to complaints, partial compliance, what we're still working towards is the policies, which are currently in meet and confer with the unions. And then when we get to accountability, we're in partial compliance, and a lot of that is based off of our PMP, which is our performance mentoring program, which you're going to hear a lot of that from Captain Barden to be able to give better explanation on how the captains are utilizing that mentorship to be able to help excel the deputies in the Antelope Valley. The chart you guys see on the right, that chart is available to you guys on the department's website. If you go to our transparency page, which in the next few slides, you'll see a QR code for that transparency page. We have all of our dashboards that are made available so you can be able to see. Once again, Captain Barden will be touching on a lot of those dashboards because the captains utilize that a lot to be able to understand the different trends that are going on within their community as well as within their station. So if you would like to see more about how the progress of the settlement agreement is going, we will be posting these type of charts and graphs as the monitoring team presents their new semi-annual reports. And one is due to come towards the end of the year.
Before you pass the baton, I did want to just ask about one item in the settlement agreement, which is item 57D, that relates to improved use of role-playing scenarios in the training, especially regarding stops, searches, and seizures. And I wanted to ask about role-playing in that specific area of training as it relates to the settlement agreement, but also just about improved use of role-playing and actual real-life scenarios in the training of the department more generally, beyond the settlement agreement?
Absolutely, it's a great question. The Training Bureau, we worked alongside very well with them, as well as utilizing our partners, the monitoring team, as well as the United States Department of Justice, to look over what we consider as adult learning concepts. And during those adult learning concepts, each of our trainings that we have, such as use of force, trainings that's related to tasers, everything that we are including in our training now has some sort of caveat of an adult learning concept that gives them live scenarios of what's going on, either past events or events that have occurred with other agencies, which has shown to be a very effective way of training.
Have you observed any of that role playing, or have you taken part in any role playing, or have you overseen any of the role playing being implemented, either as part of the settlement agreement that is marked in the progress here, or do you have any feedback or commentary about any observations you've made, maybe directly?
Absolutely. One thing that's with when it comes to being an officer or deputy in California is we are required to go through post-training. Post-training is on a 2-year cycle. And so I myself also have to attend courses such as either arrest and control or use of force type of style of training. During those trainings, I myself have also either monitored as my capacity as the compliance unit lieutenant, or also participated in those types of adult learning concepts, which is very useful and helpful.
Well, and finally, have you given thought, or do any of the role-playing scenarios involve participation, or any involvement by community members? Are there any opportunities, even if not currently in the role-playing scenarios, to involve members of the community in role-playing scenarios, so that the role playing itself can be an opportunity for building a sense of trust, and greater awareness by the public about some of the law enforcement challenges and training goals?
Also, good question. So Captain Barton's going to touch a lot of that when he goes into his section when he talks about the community, but he is going to hit on the community academy that they provide the community, and they also get scenario-based teachings of things that the deputies go through. And then we also are actually piloting training that's hopefully to be something that we would see department-wide once this training is approved by the US DOJ and our partner monitoring team. And that training is community principal policing training. And we're utilizing actually community members to be able to help with facilitating that training.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Next slide, please. So key achievements. Now there's multiple achievements that we have touched on in 2025. I'm just going to highlight a few. One of the when it comes to compliance or partial compliance achieved nearly in all settlement agreement provisions. We have utilized within 2025, and some of it also bled into 2024, is risk management dashboards now provide real-time data for the captains to be able to understand what's going on as far as risks and trends in their, not only in their community, but also in their station. And you'll hear more of that from Captain Barton. We also have the first semi-annual public stops report that's being drafted and will be published soon for the public. It's currently being reviewed by our US DOJ and our federal monitors. We have recently been in compliance for our Executive Force Review Committee, which is very large and a big deal for the department, not only just touching the Antelope Valley, but also touching all of LASD countywide. There's a publicly available use of force and analysis report that is available for the public to review. It's once again on our transparency page, which you guys will be able to see a link to be able to get you guys directly to that. Otherwise, you can also go to lasd.org under transparency. And then a reduction in use of force incidents in all categories for the Antelope Valley, which you guys will hear from the captain of how that is occurring and what steps they're taking to be able to continue that movement. Next slide. And then I'm going to touch on one item on here, and I'm going to pass it over to Captain Barton, where he's going to pretty much highlight how these changes occurred for his station in all the Antelope Valley. And one of the things I'm highlighting is when it comes to complaints, as you heard from Ms. McDowell, is a lot of our compliance that we're still working towards is in the aspect of complaints. A lot of that is due to our technology. And those are things that we are working in towards to be able to improve our technology for the 2026 era, to be able to help move things from paper and be more up into the technology verse of for our community. So also LASD is working to finalize our policies that are a meet and confer with the labor unions in regards to complaints. So I'm going to pass it over to Captain Josh Barton that's going to further explain the progress.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joshua Barton. I'm the operations captain at Palmdale Station. I'm one of the 4 captains up in the Antelope Valley. On my side is the operations. My partner will be Rick Cartmill. He does the administrative side, kind of like Georgina said, I'm more of the outward person in the community. The other partner is the one doing a lot of the administrative paperwork in the background. I'd like to first start off by talking about the foundation of what we're doing up there, and that's the 2-captain model. Under the leadership of Sheriff Robert Luna, he has definitely set a course for us to have a 21st century policing mindset when it comes to running our operation in the Antelope Valley. The objective of the 2-captain model includes improved management practices, decreased incidents of force, increased timeliness of corrective action, and improved reviews of force and complaint incidents. We're nearly 2 years into this new management system. We've seen reductions in force, increased timeliness of administrative reviews, reduced and eliminated backlogs of paperwork, which makes it better for corrective action as well, timelier feedback and corrective action, more thorough complaint reviews and dialogue with the community as well as the deputies involved, improved community engagement efforts, and increased community engagement as well. Some of the benefits we've seen so far from the 2-captain model include consistent management and oversight. Captains are more engaged and available not only to the community but to the deputies as well. Proactive versus reactive management. We're actually out there getting ahead of issues now versus having to react 6 months later. Increased mentoring, training, and support, and I'll touch on that a little bit later about the performance mentoring program. Timelier identification of problematic trends. Again, the dashboards, I'll talk about those in a minute, but those definitely tend to help us in identifying problematic trends. And increased accessibility and availability not only to department personnel, but to the community like I mentioned. Many of these management practices are now codified in unit orders at the station level, corrective action memorandums that we've done in response to audits, or other systems to ensure such reforms are institutional to the Antelope Valley stations. It is my personal belief, and I've seen in the reports, that we are cultivating a culture of accountability with our deputies and with our community. They see that we're holding ourselves accountable. I'd like to touch on a couple of things up here, and most importantly, the reduced incidence of force, as well as increased accountability. So public complaints is a crucial element to public trust. You have a right to redress grievances against government. We're continuously audited internally when it comes to our complaint process, and corrective action is taken to ensure all comments are received without delay. Inquiries have become more detailed and thorough, while corrective action has been timelier and more effective. Complaint dispositions are fact-based and impartial, and that's some of the most important parts of the audits, to make sure that we're actually looking at every little detail and actually using the right preponderance of evidence measure to dispo out the case. One of the things that you'll see in some of the audits has been that there's a cultural shift. We're trying to make sure our sergeants understand and recognize a complaint when it happens in the field versus the person calling 3 or 4 days later. We don't want something to be untimely or for something to be delayed, as well as we're also working to improve access to community members who are limited in English proficiency. We have the setup in the software online to have interpreters at all times when calls come in. It's having the station personnel at the desk recognizing when someone is limited in English proficiency to make sure those folks are heard as well. Improvements in training and feedback, corrective action, and supervision have also led to reductions in the number of force incidents. When we took over, we had to make sure that force is a last resort. That is one of the Pellian principles when it comes to policing. If the community does not trust you to use force when appropriate, you're going to lose the public trust. So for comparison, in the first 6 months of 2023, Lancaster Station had 202 uses of force, compared to 172 in 2024 and 173 in 2025. Same applies at Palmdale. 2023, in the first 6 months, we had 118 incidents. After taking over, we had 88 in 2024 and 80 in 2025 for the first 6 months of the year. So we've had reductions on both sides of the stations. The severity of the force incidents was also lessened, with non-categorized incidents becoming the highest ratio of force incidents in the valley. Station captains also now have access to real-time data performance data at our fingertips via Power BI dashboards, which measure all the different performance indicators that we could use as a captain. Complaints, force, stops data, whether or not somebody's being searched or not searched, backseat detentions. Those are all in that type of dashboard. And we compare that to crime data that's happening, directives that we're putting out to have crime management, as well as we're taking that information and we're using it in the performance mentoring program, as well as our quarterly reports. It's helping us at real time identify what's happening with our personnel and taking corrective action early to make sure the behaviors that we expect are happening in the field as well. It's integral to the risk management forums that we participate in, as well as the crime management forum, in which we don't want to have anything that we put out as a directive to negatively impact the community later. We want to make sure what we're doing and putting out there for the deputies to do to impact crime or prevent crime and have our public members be co-producers with us on is not going to negatively impact a certain neighborhood for a certain unreason that we didn't see. If I can move on to the next slide, please. So the last part is community-driven actions. Field activities are now guided by strategic plans at each station. This is the first time we've ever had a strategic plan at either station. They're aimed at building community trust through collaborative problem solving and bias-free policing in line with 21st century policing principles. These plans were developed using crime data as well as community input via surveys. We actually created our own surveys, and they've been adapted now for the county as a whole through the sheriff's station. We have ongoing surveys for the community to take, and we also have micro surveys when we go to community events in certain areas. If we see a spike in crime in a certain area, we'll go host a community event there. We'll do a micro survey to get more information from them, and then we'll try to have a strategy and plan for that area to combat that crime and help the community help us prevent the crime from happening. Actions taken are constantly assessed via risk management data to ensure such actions do not negatively impact the community. Some of the highlighted key initiatives include we both have active community advisory committees at each station, as well as a youth advisory council. Touching on some of the stuff Lieutenant Hicks said a few minutes ago, we do run 2 community academies a year. I had several members of my CAC, the Community Advisory Council, attend this last one. They have the Milo simulator there, which is the shoot, not shoot, as well as other scenario-based training that they go through, as well as they get to go on ride-alongs. And the feedback I've gotten so far from them, they really do enjoy the ride-alongs and the shoot, don't shoot simulator. We've also, and I'll touch on this later during another presentation, we've created a virtual deputy. Virtual deputy provides further access to the community. It's helpful for us to utilize our resources in a different way. And we also have it in English and now Spanish. We have the department-wide community feedback survey, which I talked about a little bit ago. We've also started Spanish-speaking events only. They're only Spanish-speaking. At the beginning of the year, we've probably hosted about 7 or 8 in the city of Palmdale now. We just hosted one last week, and we have one coming up on December 10th. It's all in Spanish, and it's been aimed at making sure the folks that are in fear because of their immigration status are not remaining voiceless and as victims. We don't want to have any victim's voice not be heard. Between us and Lancaster Station, we've had over 130 community events between us in the first 6 months of 2025. We just recently hosted our haunted jailhouse event. It was a 2-day event. We closed down Sierra Highway in front of the station. We had about 10,000 people show up in a 2-day span. Trunk or treat, cars, haunted jail, a lot of community members out there, a lot of good positive feedback. It was a very well-attended event. In terms of transparency, the department has publicly available data dashboards on force and stops. Everything we have access to, they can see on the transparency page, which will be on that QR code right there. You'll have information on the stops that are happening, the use of force that's happening, the complaints that are coming in, and I believe soon they'll also have data on there about the survey data coming in from the community. We also release annual community engagement reports, and we also respond to annual reports from our CACs, and they give us good feedback, and we take action on that feedback. Just like to conclude on my part of it is that we're trying to have constitutional-based policing, and we're trying to have co-producers with the community. When I took over, the biggest thing for me was to serve the community. The first message to my deputies was quality service in a timely manner. And one of the biggest things we've had recently is when I first took over, it was 200 minutes on average for you to get to a call for service. We're at 87 minutes right now on average for a non-emergent call. We've cut it in half. And that was the biggest source of complaints from our community members, as well as them not seeing the deputies in the field. So we're making sure that they're seen, they're visible, they're preventing crime, and they're getting to the calls on time to help out our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for walking through that summary. I did just have a few questions, and I'm very pleased to see you here today, and I'm very pleased to have not simply you representing the Palmdale station, but I think we have some stakeholders in the room from Lancaster and from Palmdale. I wanted to ask one question that came up recently involving the Palmdale station and your strategic plan, is a question about the newcomer in law enforcement in your area, which is the Lancaster Police Department, which is a newly established city police department. And there are questions that are arising in the community about some contracts or memoranda that exist between that department and your own station. And there are questions coming up that I think raise some important areas of concern for this commission and for stakeholders, in part because of the data that we saw in the settlement agreement that led to the settlement agreement about raids on people's homes, attacks on people who were Black, brown, or immigrant, or perceived as Section 8 housing recipients, beneficiaries. And some of the evidence that this commission itself has looked over involving the disproportionate use of force, including tasing of African-American students and teenagers, and the disproportionate use of force, including weaponry, even if it's less lethal weaponry, against African-American members of the stakeholder community in the Palmdale station. So I wanted to just ask, how is your department implicated in agreements involving the policing of Palmdale schools or other school sites in your area in ways that are not clear to the public about who is responding, whose authority exists in those school sites, and for school resource deputies deployed in school sites where we've seen evidence of disproportionate use of force against African-American teenagers, even in high schools in the area. I wanted to just ask if that's creating any difficulty or confusion for you, as it seems to be for members of the community in and around Palmdale.
Well, I appreciate that question, sir, and I'll try to do my best to answer that for you. I will start off by, yes, Lancaster, the city of Lancaster has created their own policing agency, the Lancaster Police Department. Chief Rod Armelin is the chief of that police agency. And it is also my understanding that they are entering into or have entered into a contract to be the school resource officer for the West Side School District, which has schools not only in the city of Palmdale, city of Lancaster, but also in unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County. That information has been given to us in the Sheriff's Department. County Council, as well as the Supervisorial District, is working to hopefully eventually get a memorandum of understanding to work with the Lancaster PD. As it relates to our programs, we have a SRO, School Resource Officer contract for the Palmdale School District at Palmdale Station, which falls under this settlement agreement, all the management practices I spoke to earlier, as well as Lancaster Station has the SRO contract for the Antelope Valley High School District, in which, again, that's under the leadership of Lancaster Station under Paul Bartlett and Joe Fender. Ultimately, those are, again, under the same type of things I just talked about earlier. There is no, at this point, control between us over Lancaster PD. They are their own separate entity. They're their own post-recognized law enforcement institution. And like I said, County Council, as well as the Sheriff's Department of the Supervisorial District of 5, are working together to have a memorandum of understanding between us and that new entity.
Can I just say, I appreciate the clarity that you sought to bring to a muddy situation, but if I were a stakeholder in that part of Los Angeles County, that would defy credulity and I would not know whom to hold accountable. I would not be clear as a constituent who was working for me and what the chain or what the pipeline or what the order of accountability was there. I would feel at sea, and I'm guessing, especially given some of the feedback that I've received, and I think maybe other members of this commission have received, that's clear as mud to people in and around Palmdale, especially students or parents of students at local schools. And I think that raises some real questions about the fulfillment of the settlement agreement if we're creating different jurisdictions that create confusion for stakeholders and constituents, and where there's no clarity about who is ultimately accountable, especially when there's the possibility of force being used on minors.
Understood, sir, and I really do appreciate what you're saying. I will tell you, Chief Armelin did reach out recently to try to put together a conversation about this, but I will tell you what I've always told people. I may not have the answer, but I'll find the answer for you. If there's anyone that's in my community or in the Lancaster community, reach out to one of us and we will help you find that answer or connect you with whoever it may be that gets you that answer. And as far as I'm concerned, we are trying to work together as different agencies to get this figured out. And I understand that there are questions in the community, and those questions need to be answered as well.
And again, just two more questions.
Yes, sir.
One is also about transparency and the progress on transparency and reporting and clear answers, which I appreciate your very direct commitment to doing that. I can see why you are looked to for that, for fulfilling that. But I want to ask, the settlement agreement was also about more pernicious and deeply rooted biases were called out in that report. And we continue to see evidence of biased or perhaps disproportionate, at least manifesting as disproportionate, perhaps stemming from bias, and the readiness to use greater amounts of force against Black and brown students and young people and adults in the Antelope Valley. We've seen a rash of shootings of unarmed, mostly unarmed African-American men in the Antelope Valley. That's one manifestation, perhaps, of a more systemic problem. I just want to ask, what kinds of measures are being taken to deal with the subtler, more implicit forms of bias that are called out in the settlement agreement findings and in the data that we continue to see here at the COC that's posted on your transparency page about policing in the Antelope Valley, including at your own station? What kind of efforts are being made to deal with what I think is pretty clear evidence of more pervasive and systemic implicit bias going on in some of the policing tactics and in the evidence provided by your department?
I appreciate that, sir. I could sit here and tell you the typical department line and say there's training and everything else, but I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing in action. We're out there every day in the week working with the community and trying to make those relationships start and flourish with the people in our community. I've brought in partners like Artie from the County of Los Angeles, anti-race, diversion, inclusion, to help us make those inroads, right? We acknowledge where we came from and where we're going. We've had the Centers for Policing Equity come in and do a report. We're measuring out what we're doing in our stops data. I believe in the last stops report that we put out, particularly like you mentioned, African Americans in our community is 18%, and our stops data was 24%. We had almost 11,000 citations last year written, and I will tell you, 99% of those citations were written by motor deputies getting people on a radar speeding. For me, it's all about cultural competency, okay? I've talked to my deputies every day that when you stop somebody, they don't know you, you don't know them. You got to give them a minute or two to feel each other out, to have an understanding for where you might be coming from. The person in the car might have had a bad experience the day before with another deputy or another officer, right? It's a human dynamic. It's getting out, having those contacts, the non-enforcement contacts, being more of the guardian versus the warrior. We're lucky because a lot of the folks that work up there live up there. This is their fellow community members, right? I get out there every day, I'm shaking hands, I'm talking to people. I am reaching out, trying to bridge that gap. I know it's cliche to say, but You know, I'll give you a point of example. A person I know that I really like a lot, a man named Rossi Cherry, runs AV Youth Build. We had our haunted jail the other day. I sent him a flyer, just said, hey, we're having this thing if you want to come out. The next day I had 20-something people in his workforce that are trying to become construction guys out there helping us put it together. It's those relationships. If I have somebody who's down and out and I need something for them, I go to Pastor Mike over at Victory Outreach. We have these folks in the community that I've set these relationships up, and I'm reaching out with my deputies as well. And I think they're seeing it. I have people come up to me all the time at these community meetings and saying, you've got something good going on here in Palmdale. Okay, I feel like we're making some strides, but if we're coming from here, it's going to take a long time to get to here. We have to acknowledge where we came from, and we're going to be clear and transparent about where we're going and what our intentions are. And I think it really boils down to communication. I'm trying to get my deputies every day of the week to learn how to communicate with folks, but we're in this generation now where how do we communicate? Texting, right? You're not sitting there having an actual conversation with folks. I got to get them out of that dynamic so they actually know how to be a human and talk to each other. That's where it starts.
And the documents that are in the complaint process that you mentioned are subject to meet and confer now. Can that be shared with members of the commission?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay,
Put in a-
Sorry, that's not in my.
that's okay. Please do. Just know that we would relish being able to review any information about the complaint process as it moves forward, despite its unfinished or incomplete status, subject to ongoing meet and confer negotiations, which are taking a long time. I understand the priority of the sheriff on consulting and seeing things through. But as you know, we dealt with a 3-year meet and confer. We're still in meet and confer on Measure R, which was passed by voters 5 years ago. So I want to just make sure that if we can review meet and confer documents in lengthy meet and confer processes in this county and with LASD, that we have a chance to do so. And finally, before I let go here, I'd want to just ask, given some other concerns that have been raised with this commission, are you aware of any workarounds going on around the settlement agreement that would appear to be sidestepping some of the monitoring going on? Tactics such as, instead of putting people in the back seat of a sheriff's car, having people sit on the curb or sitting elsewhere, which then doesn't trigger measurement under the settlement agreement, but which nonetheless is an imposition and is in some ways a workaround or even a possible violation of the spirit of the settlement agreement. Are there any problematic workarounds going on that perhaps may target African-American members of the community in the Antelope Valley that we've received reports about that you can comment on?
Yes, so I will tell you, I have not experienced anything of any type of workarounds. I believe we have a very strong working relationship with the monitors now. We also have items in place to do body worn camera audits all the time, as well as stops data audits. We're always looking at these in relation to our performance mentoring program, as well as looking for the problematic trends, but I have not seen that trend. No, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions by other commissioners?
I want to thank you for your report. Thank you for being here, but I do have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially the one dealing with building trust with Antelope Valley communities, because it's documented as sustained compliance. And my understanding, based on what Mrs. McDowell said, that it has to be continuous for at least a year. And so I have some concerns, mainly because of the complaints that come about. What is the demographics of your police station?
Of the actual deputies?
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, we probably have one of the largest amounts of females there, and it's predominantly Hispanic. I would say roughly about 40% Hispanic at this point. I want to say maybe 10% African American, but I can get back to you on the actual facts. But from what I've know of my personnel, we have a pretty good representation of the community, as well as most, I would say predominantly 30–40% of them live in the area as well.
Oh, okay. All right. The other question I had was, you talked about community engagement. Can you give me some examples of the Blacks that are involved in your community engagement? And also, what Black organizations are involved in your community engagements?
Absolutely. I will point out one person in particular, a lady by the name of Racine Ector that I've been working with individually. I actually met her through the complaint process. We work very well together. We've actually dealt on a couple different things in the community, as well as NAACP. The president there's Fawn White. A lot of these folks are a lot of our community things. And I'll tell you, community engagement to me, when I first took over, it looked like PR. It was public relations. It was not engagement. Okay. Engagement to me is actually getting out there, working with our community and solving problems together, being co-producers of safety and preventing crime. That's what we're doing now. We're trying to get their information, their input, and work together collaboratively to address problems. That's engagement to me, and solving their problems or whatever it may be that makes them feel unsafe in their area. So some of the stuff like response times and those things that have came to my attention, we've been trying to solve together. So I hope that answers your question. Another person would be Rossi Cherry, who I spoke about earlier. He works to have young men get jobs in construction. His location's right behind us on our station, and we try to work together to get folks a means of life compared to crime.
Okay, very good. On the surveys that you do, how are you maintaining the demographics on whether it's Hispanic, Black, white? Are you monitoring that in terms of who answered these surveys?
Yes, so there's the department survey as well as my micro surveys that I do. Obviously, I can't control the demographics at any place that we do. We try to target certain areas at a time to hopefully get a snapshot of the demographics there, but there's questions on there about gender, about race, age, all those things to get those different data points. But from what I've seen so far, it definitely represents the community demographics as a whole. You'll also see a lot of times, folks that are retired. There's definitely, you look at whether or not they're married, unmarried, that type of stuff. All that data is captured on our surveys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. That ends my question.
Commissioner Callaway.
Where do y'all post the CAC meeting dates and times?
The CAC has its own website, but if you'd like, I could also have it posted on our website and or our social media pages. The CAC is its own entity to a point. They have their own bylaws. They have their own chair. They have their own social media as well. I could inform them that you'd like to see it posted, but we have provided those dates to the OIG as well, and there has been representatives from the OIG in our meetings recently.
Yeah, because I looked on the website. I don't know if it was Lancaster or Palmdale, but the Facebook page, it's like no post from this year. Because I was trying to figure out when the CAC meeting was. I try to go to all of them, and I've been to a couple previously, and it's once a quarter.
So we have monthly meetings as a CAC, and then we have quarterly town halls. We just had our quarterly town hall last week at Salva.
Oh, okay.
And it was a Spanish-speaking only event.
Copy. So yeah, I would like to get in contact with whoever that has the specific dates and times. I would also, I'm wondering, as far as SROs and the stats on what demographic is getting contacted, what demographic is getting handcuffed, all that information, where is that report?
There's a couple different parts to that. One, the Community Partnerships Bureau in our department oversees the full SRO program, training and that type of stuff and stat retention. But if there is a use of force, a complaint, anything like that, and it involves a Palmdale deputy, it would be contained within our stats for the Palmdale station. Same applies to Lancaster station as well.
Is it broken out, or does it just get under the one umbrella, like use of force, and then it's of Palmdale City?
So it is To answer your question, there's not like one streamlined report just for SROs, but we have the capability to do that.
Copy that. And is there a way to get that? Do I just contact you, or how would I know to be able to verify like that information? Like, can you break that out and then send it to COC or anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah, we'd have to get an official request for that data, and
Okay.
certainly supply that.
Copy that. And then, so the last question. I am pretty sure that y'all were doing role playing before the settlement agreement, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what is the difference? Like what would be the actual difference between role playing that happened before the settlement agreement and then role playing that happened after, specific to the settlement agreement, and not like just an improvement in technology that you were gonna, do the video and shoot people or not shoot people, that type of thing?
Right. I'll give you the best answer I can. A lot of that's going to be dictated with Training Bureau to give more further instructions on it. But a lot of things that they've done recently is they have retrained their instructors, more of a train the trainer, as well as looked at best practices to be able to see what other agencies are teaching and what's best practice out there to be able to be taught when it comes to adult learning concepts.
So basically, the new information is reaching outside of the department to other law enforcement agencies to see what their best practices were doing and implementing whatever that made sense.
Correct.
Copy.
I have one question for Lieutenant Hicks.
Yes, ma'am.
In the training process, are there any Black cultural type education given? Because it's my understanding, sometimes I don't think the white policemen understand Black culture and they become offensive, or they think Black people are being aggressive when they ask, why am I being stopped? And it just seems to escalate beyond what is really necessary. And as I listened to Captain Barton make the statement, you have to use the amount of force that's needed. If not, you lose trust. Well, I think for Black people, when I ask you a question and then I'm getting beat up, that use of force is not going to make me trust you. So, but I just feel like Black culture need to be introduced into some of this training. And even with the youth, because we know kids will say stuff in a way that adults might assume is disrespectful. And they just assume all Black teenagers are the same, which is not true. Just because we're all Black, we're not all the same. So is Black culture introduced in any of the training?
That is a great question. And in regards to the settlement agreement sections 119, it's going to be B through E, as well as 89 also talks about minority and people of color, and including that kind of context when it comes to bias. And so one of the trainings that we're going to be piloting soon in the Antelope Valley is related to principal policing, and including such things as that, to be able to understand both every single aspect of the community, all races, all minorities, and be able to give a better in-depth, as well as including a community member to be able to give their perspective. It's going to be an intense conversation. That's what we want it to be able to have those feelings. And just like Captain Barton was speaking on knowing the history of where we were, that's the only way we're going to make change, and effective change, is to be able to move things forward. And so, yes, we will be tackling a lot of those hard questions, a lot of those hard conversations, and it's going to be uncomfortable at times in those classes, but that's what we want. That's what we want to see, is because that's the only way you're going to understand. And seeing it from both the community aspect as well as the deputies aspect is where we're going to be able to get that real change. And then to also further clarify in regards to the community engagement, where it shows sustained compliance, it's actually majority of it sustained. One of the things that we're going to be able to get us to that sustained in the community engagement category, because there's multiple components to community engagement, is this training that we're going to be piloting. And once we get everyone through that, not only through the Antelope Valley, but department-wide, you guys will definitely see some effective change.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make sure that the interest of COC members is heard in sitting in on trainings where possible. I think you've heard some questions, but also a great deal of genuine curiosity and willingness to review and consult and to be partners in the improvement on those trainings and the effectuation of the goals that you're marking progress on here in your reports with us today. So are you open to our, as we have been in other trainings, being observers or auditors in your trainings?
Absolutely. You guys were actually included in our last community engagement training that you guys saw me actually present as well with Lieutenant Melanie Rivers. And so there's going to be several different trainings, and we would love to be able to have you guys to sit part, as well as offering certain trainings to our community to see as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Loud and clear. With that.
Hans, is it possible for me to just make a couple quick comments?
Yes.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the audits that AAB does are on the Sheriff's Department website. And we did, in one of our quarterly reports, review those audits and report on some of the numbers. And I just think it is important to point out that with regard to complaints, that there are very few complaints that are actually investigated and responded to timely by these stations. And so, you know, the idea of justice delayed is justice denied is important. I also think it's important that there are very, very few complaints that are ever founded. And so that's also a cause for concern, because one would expect that there would be some founded complaints. The audits also showed some concerns about body worn camera activation and also not telling people the reasons for the stop, which is required now in California. So if someone asks why they were stopped, it is required in California that the person be told that they were stopped. We have done reports on the school resource deputies in the Antelope Valley that did show racial disparities. And I think those reports are all on our website. There were, I believe, 3 reports with recommendations. Most of our recommendations for the school resource deputy contracts were implemented, but the Board of Supervisors at the meeting last time when they approved those contracts informed the department, or I would say directed the department specifically to include other things in those contracts. And that's directly from the Board of Supervisors. We had one meeting and with the department, and, you know, essentially we told them, you know, it's not even our recommendations anymore. These are directly from the board. But I think the most important thing is that in March of 2023, we wrote a report called Addressing Racial Disparities in Traffic Stops. Prior to releasing this report, we met with the Office of Constitutional Policing. And at the time, we were told it's really important for the department to implement the policies, the types of policies in your report, especially because LAPD already has these policies. So essentially, they're referred to as pretext stops, but they're really crime suppression stops, right? There's stops where somebody gets pulled over because their registration is not current, and there ends up being a search of the car, right? One wouldn't expect, if you had a registration expired, that would lead to a search, but it often does. And there are racial disparities regarding when it leads to a search. We recommended that these policies be adopted by the department in March of 2023, and we were told they were open to doing that. None of these policies have been implemented. The RIPA, the state racial, I'm blanking on exactly what all the letters stand for, but basically it's racial profiling in traffic stops. The state agency RIPA produced a report, which I personally provided to the department, but I'm sure they had it already, essentially saying the same things that are in our report on addressing racial disparities. I think it is paramount that these policies be implemented, because if you pull somebody over for having a expired tag, they should be getting a ticket. There's also in our body worn camera report, we mentioned auditing body worn camera stops, because there is some evidence that depending on how the stop starts, it leads to how the stop ends. So when the deputy is kind to the person that they pulled over, much less likely to result in a search, right? You meet kindness with kindness. So for instance, yes, someone's going to ask why they were pulled over if the deputy doesn't do his job and say, or her job and say, this is why you were pulled over. So we've made a number of recommendations that are consistent with best practices in policing, consistent with what the state has said. And it's really, really important that the recommendations of OIG, the COC, and the state, that they be implemented and not ignored. And I think we will see that many of the recommendations made by both oversight bodies are not implemented by the Sheriff's Department. And with regard to complaints, I do have one question, although I do want to commend Captain Barton for mentioning that the right to have your grievances redressed is a constitutional right. So I think that mindset and the fact that he said that is a really important cultural shift. So I do want to give them credit where credit is due. That's a hugely important cultural shift that I would not have expected to hear 5 or 10 years ago. So that's the shift that we need to see. But, oh, now I forgot what my question was. Anyway, so.
Thank you. Thank you for raising
This is what happens when I, say something nice. Anyway, if it comes to me, I can ask him offline.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you for mentioning AB 2773, in effect since January of 2024, about the requirement to state the reason for a stop in California. That's been law now for almost 2 years, and it's important that people know AB 2773. And I want to just note that we appreciate your bringing up the report, which was the same month as our report on deputy gangs in the department. And we will make note that that remains still unfulfilled, and that those pledges remain outstanding for implementation. But I also want to just recognize and thank the members of the department for your report, and ask if there's any closing, do you have any closing words or any last conclusion before we, oh, Commissioner Newhouse, yes.
I am here today. Just want that to be record. I wanted to commend Captain Barton and the lieutenant for both, particularly Captain Barton. I've been doing this a while, and I think your definition of community engagement and your propagation of that attitude and policy throughout the deputy sheriffs is absolutely critical, because it brings the deputies together with the community, and I believe will reduce the number of instances where, and of course we all know that the point where there is typically antagonism is a traffic stop, because these two gentlemen or people do not know each other. And the more there is great engagement in the community, which it seems to me that you are working towards, those misunderstandings will be avoided, and that will actually make our life a lot easier as the COC, because we'll have fewer complaints. But anyway, thank you and great job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And we want to thank Georgina McDowell, also who has stayed with us, I believe, from Salinas. Georgina, are you still there?
I am still here and happily still here.
Is your popcorn finished, Georgina?
I need to go get one now and get it buttered.
Okay,
No, I'll just also state that the questions and the concerns that are raised by the commission are spot on, and how wonderful it is to see accountability and opportunities for sharing information to and with the community, and that it is going to be a constant effort to move forward in a way that really has that culture shift, right? LASD is the largest sheriff's department in the country, and a shift takes time. And every step counts. And I think on behalf of the monitoring team, there's been improvement. As you can see by Captain Barden, there's been great improvement in the Antelope Valley. It's not perfect. However, there needs to be that sustained understanding and agreement of guardian mentality as opposed to warrior. So just giving the kudos to COC, because really the job that you do is critical and important.
And I just want to note in closing, in part because of your role there in Monterey County, you know, language access is under real threat in our country, even in our state. Entities that are responsible for providing translators and interpreters to Californians, 40% of whom speak a language other than English at home, is under real threat and under real attack. And so I just want to commend all of your efforts to fight for access to meaningful language access. I want to thank all of the professionals who do that in the department, those who are freelance, outside the department. Not easy work to do anytime, but especially under these circumstances. So we all have to be cognizant and to be especially supportive of efforts to provide language access now when they are greatly endangered and where funding streams are under direct assault from the highest levels of our government. So thank you for paying attention to language access in your comments, Captain Barden. And I want to make sure that all of us are doing whatever we can to uplift and support language access now. I want to also recognize Commissioner Callaway.
Wondering if we would be able to attend the monthly meeting and instead of the town hall.
I have no problem with it all, sir. My doors are open.
Copy that.
Thank you. With that, we will shift gears to hearing the report from a Sheriff's Department representative who I think today we're joined by Assistant Sheriff Myron Johnson. And after that, we will shift back to a discussion about the meet and confer negotiations and their status in the department. Assistant Sheriff, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. Is this thing on? Can you guys hear me? Good morning. I'm going to provide some updates that the sheriff would provide had he been here. He's got previous engagement that he's attended. But as you know, the Dodgers are in the World Series. There are plenty of fans on the department as well as in the communities that we serve, and are hopeful that the Dodgers will win decisively. And that everyone in the community as well as our department gets the opportunity to celebrate responsibly. So the department, again, encourages all of our members and the public to celebrate peacefully as we support the Dodgers in the World Series. To prepare for any potential issues arising from celebrations, our department personnel have been rebriefed on our department policies regarding media interactions, the wearing of masks by law enforcement personnel, and the authorized use of less lethal weaponry in the event of civil unrest, which I do not anticipate occurring. We had a number of important briefing sessions on this when they won the National League Championship, and our personnel followed all the rules and expectations set forth. In addition, the department has met with community members, the Civilian Oversight Commission, Executive Director Mosley, and staff to coordinate public messaging aimed to proactively promote safe and peaceful celebrations throughout the county. And I welcome any opportunity we can to partner with the COC to get the important message out of celebrating this victory, potential victory, proposed victory responsibly. And we're grateful for those engagement opportunities with COC in that regard. In terms of our department attrition rate and onboarding, back in the 7th of this month, we onboarded 69 deputy sheriffs. We have 2 more classes scheduled for graduation coming next year. Class 46, we're looking at getting 61 deputy sheriffs onboarded, and then class 47 scheduled to graduate March 3rd of next year to add 64 additional personnel to the ranks within the department. We had 3 promotions during the month of October, 1 promotion to captain, one promotion to commander, and one promotion to the rank of chief. And you'll get to meet him shortly. He's going to replace me as I have another meeting to attend. Chief Ron Copper, who we welcome to the rank of chief on the department over the North Patrol Division. This month, we celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month, October 7th. Sheriff Luna was a guest speaker, celebrated the rich heritage of the Hispanic culture and their contributions to the Sheriff's Department. It's well attended, and it was a very festive event. We also, in the city of Lancaster, and speaking of community engagement efforts, there was a Faith and Blues showcase, Filipino heritage of our employees and the communities that we serve within the county. And again, their contributions to the Sheriff's Department. We also reviewed a history lesson on the pioneers that served with our department many, many years ago from the Filipino community. Over the weekend, actually the 18th of this month, we had the No Kings 2.0 events across the county. There were approximately 42 planned events. 11 of those occurred in LASD's jurisdiction, 15 in LAPD's jurisdiction, and then 16 events in other cities within the county. The largest celebration in our area of responsibility was at the Civic Center in Grand Park. At around 2 p.m., at the height of the crowd, we had about 200 attendees, very peaceful demonstrations, many public speakers exercising their First Amendment rights. And around 6 o'clock p.m., those crowds dispersed without any significant incidents or arrests. As far as our crime statistics throughout the county year to date, we are down violent crime 3.6%. Property crimes are down 13.1%. So our overall Part 1 crime reduction across the county year to date is 11.3%. And those of you who aren't familiar with what Part 1 crimes are, those are the most severe violent crimes tracked by the FBI. They include homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, grand theft, auto, and arson. And I'll just reiterate, we are looking at a reduction over last year's period of 11.3%, which is good considering we're this far into the year of 2025. And I'll keep my updates brief, but that's where we are as a department right now.
Thank you.
For questions.
Thank you, Assistant Chair. Are there any questions or is there any public comment for the sheriff's report?
Yes, Chair, we have one public comment from C online. C, you have been unmuted. C, if you're available, you have been unmuted.
Yes, yeah. I was at the parking lot 2 days ago, and a sheriff vehicle was driving the opposite side of the travel lane, and he was staring me down, intimidating. They were acting intimidating, and the behavior was a predatory nature, and I kept a watchful eye on them. They were driving a vehicle by the vehicle number 1647477, and they weren't. The parking lot is operated under the care of a Santa Monica police officer, and they were crisscrossing the Cruz, the Chevy Cruz vehicle. It was crisscrossing from one parking spot to another parking spot. They can be doing sightseeing, hanging around there. That's what my complaint about. And their behavior toward me was nothing but hostile. The vehicle number is 1647477. I reported this matter to Marina Del Rey Sheriff's Department, and they claim, oh, it's not from their division. And I know there's a Santa Monica courthouse down the street, but the sheriff, they only got legal authority in and around the courthouse, but not at this parking lot. So I don't want a LA County Sheriff's vehicle patrolling Lot 4, south of Santa Monica. The address is 2701 Barnyard Way. That's all.
Thank you for your comment. Chair, there are no further public comments at this time.
And thank you. And if you are experiencing wind chill factor here in the room, you are not alone. I just want to note that we may be frozen out of this non-meeting of the COC, but I do aim to wrap up without taking a break here, maybe by noon. I'm hoping that we might be able to wrap up by noon. So I just want to give a sense of remaining business and topics for conversation, and to thank those who are withstanding the Himalayan chill in our meeting facility today, that you are not alone, and maybe some of those Dodger fleece blankets could come in handy here today. I do want to recognize that we have a subject matter expert here on PREA. I want to thank John Barkley for being with us. We're going to hear from John shortly. But before that, I want to recognize a discussion and a bit of an update on the meet and confer procedures that have now issue of body-worn cameras in custody. And we have a presentation by Dara Williams of the Office of Inspector General. And after that, I look forward to hearing from John Barkley. Dara, please enlighten us about the conclusion on September 11th of lengthy negotiations about body-worn cameras in custody and some of the other issues related to that progress. Thank you.
So yes, the process did come to a close, and the custody division manual now has a policy on body-worn cameras. The cameras had previously been purchased, and so now they will be deployed throughout the custody facilities so that deputies in the facilities will be wearing them. It did take some time also with regard to the infrastructure needed to install these cameras because they are cloud-based storage system. So you need a lot of support in order to be able to upload the videos. I don't know what the status is of actually how many people have these body-worn cameras. But one thing that we did want to raise is that we wrote a previous report on CCTV, which is the cameras within the facilities that record continuously. Those do not have audio, so that's one drawback to those as opposed to body-worn cameras, but these are going to dovetail, so they'll both be on. But we indicated that there is an importance for real-time monitoring of the CCTV, which is why, like in the movies, you always see the security guards actually looking at the CCTV, and why, people who have security have people watching it. I think it is important to bring up artificial intelligence, and that, artificial intelligence, when its big brother is watching the community, obviously there's privacy issues and concerns about that, but artificial intelligence can play a role in essentially an oversight, right? And when I say that, what I mean is that you can use artificial intelligence to look at body-worn camera video, to flag things. And I could, foresee the union saying that, well, this would be disciplined, but, with the Sheriff's Department performance monitoring system and mentoring system, right, it would be really important to just do those types of audits to help people, to mentor people, to help shift the cultural change. So we're not suggesting that these necessarily be used for discipline, except in, the most egregious, instances, but it is really important that when you have the type of staffing problems that law enforcement throughout the country has, that you be able to, whenever possible, use that type of intelligence to make up for the fact that there is a lack of staffing, which I don't think we're going to solve through hiring. And, likewise, we mentioned in this report that AI can serve that purpose, but there's also, within the custody environment, in addition to, body worn camera video and CCTV, there are means of artificial intelligence to do things such as Title 15 checks. So it sort of plays into the whole, like, how are we monitoring the people that are interacting with the community, both outside and inside the custodial facilities where your communities are obviously the persons incarcerated. So in our report, we do mention the idea of using AI to improve departmental responses to the community and the way they interact with the community by looking at body worn camera video audits using AI. And there have been studies that show that using these things to mentor people raises the rate of professionalism and lowers the rate of unprofessional conduct, which are both very important. So that is really what we noted in our report. And we're hopeful that the department will explore some of these possibilities that, through time may actually be more cost effective than hiring. So.
Is there any reason for the coincidence in the numbers cited in the report between the 4,450 BWCs is that the community colleges and county services bureau, and then the 4,641 cameras included in custody context on pages 1 and 2 respectively? Is that just a coincidence that those numbers are so similar?
As far as I know, it's simply a coincidence that they're so similar. I mean, they're deployed per deputy. So I think that there's obviously a number of, there's deputies in custody and there's multiple shifts per day. So obviously it requires a lot of staffing there. I would imagine, but somebody here might be able to answer, I wouldn't picture that they would purchase significantly more cameras than there are staff in custody, but they do purchase, I think, some extra for things like, breakage and things like that. So as far as I know, that's just simply a coincidence. I don't know if there's anybody here that can answer that. Probably not from the department. I mean.
Is there a set of problems and recent reports, and I want to make sure that we reference a member of the Civil Brand Commission who's with us here today about conditions in our LA County jails. Are there particular conditions or any recent complaints that you think the body-worn cameras on deputies in custody settings might be particularly helpful in redressing, including any complaints brought before this commission that you believe this implementation, which I know the sheriff personally is very proud to help bring forward. I wanted to just ask if there were any cases that come to mind or complaints, and perhaps we'll hear from a member of the SBC shortly, that are at the top of your mind in looking forward to this bit of progress in custody?
We certainly get complaints about the way that people in custody are treated, right? That they're disrespected, that they're ignored, that their medical complaints aren't addressed. So I think that having body-worn camera video about those interactions is important. And just simply the fact that you're wearing a video, I think somewhat increases professionalism, right? You're certainly going to be more reluctant to be rude to somebody when you know you're being videoed, right? So we do get those types of complaints about, as far as the conditions of the jails, like, those are pretty static, right? Toilets overflow, rodent infestation, complaints about food, things like those. I don't think that body-worn camera video will really assist with those, what I would call facility systemic complaints, right? Which are very, very hard to address with the number of people in custody. But as far as the interactions between people, I do think it will likely improve the interactions. And if there is, mistreatment of people in custody, then that will be recorded on the body worn camera video. So.
And thank you. I just do want to note, we don't often get scintillating, nationally available documentaries about jail conditions, but one such documentary is now, in the last 2 weeks, in wide release and on demand for cable subscribers nationwide. And that is the amazing new documentary called The Alabama Solution. I know many people here may have started or taken in the entire documentary. I strongly encourage those who can to set aside 2 hours to watch this documentary about cruel and unusual conditions in Alabama prisons, but which are not confined, no pun intended, to the state of Alabama. The efforts to brutalize and to take away channels of recourse to people incarcerated in Alabama, I think ring sadly true and sadly familiar, even to those of us in California and in Los Angeles County, where we like to vaunt our progress in redressing systemic abuse and the brutalization of people in custody. It's a really well done documentary, and I just want to give a shout out to LA Times reporter Connor Sheets, whose work as a reporter in Alabama was part of the grounding and the platform for reporting that led to this great documentary, The Alabama Solution. Please do take a moment to take the time to take in this new documentary, because I think it gives great appreciation, not just for the need for progress, the need for scrutiny and for transparency, but also the particular value of body-worn cameras on officers in custody conditions. With that, I want to thank Dara for the report and for the action that it will prompt at a future commission meeting. And I want to ask if any member of the Civil Brand Commission who might be here might be able to provide any commentary on that bit of progress and any other issues involving our sibling commission and some of our discussions about making the work of SBC mesh even more effectively with the work of the COC.
Thank you. My name is Eric Miller. I'm a commissioner on the Civil Brand Commission. I suppose I'll get to body-worn cameras as part of the report. So I just want to quickly report that at the last meeting of the Civil Brand Commission, a lot of our time was taken up discussing the executive officer's proposal to sunset the Civil Brand Commission and to fold the commission into, well, it's not clear exactly what. The Civil Brand Commission voted to oppose that proposal. I'd like to note that the executive officer's sunset proposal comes at a particularly important moment for oversight in LA County, a moment in which the county is paying a $4 billion settlement for horrific treatment of children in county custody. And that demonstrates the need for the county to listen to our oversight commissions. At the same time as the county's response is to cut oversight bodies and oppose the work that a number of oversight commissions do. The Civil Brand Commissioners are members of the public, and we think that that's an important feature of the commission that distinguishes it from some of the other bodies engaged in oversight. The commission is responsible both for inspections and public hearings. We have found that it is precisely our non-specialized role as members of the public witnessing the inhumane conditions in our jails that give us a unique unique insight as representatives of the people of Los Angeles County. The Sybil Brand Commission has the power to engage in unaccompanied visits, and we report what we observe out to the public in meetings where all the stakeholders appear, including the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. It's the reason why we are cited 27 times in the Attorney General's complaint, because we're able to detail current conditions in the jails on a regular basis. And we found that closing us down would make oversight less accountable to the public. Our meetings have consistently identified significant shortcomings on the record in which the Los Angeles Sheriff Department itself has done things like acknowledge the insufficiency of the safety checks that it has mandated under both consent decree and BSCC, I always get it wrong, is it BSSC or BSCC, Title 15 to engage in. And this is where the body cameras discussion becomes interesting, because as we have noted, and I think as the Office of Inspector General has noted, these safety checks are conducted in a cursory manner in which when an officer walks around, they simply scan a QR code and often do not look into rooms that are in which the ability to see in is obscured. They do not move blankets where people are covering their cots, and have missed such things as nooses hanging in cells. Hopefully body-worn cameras would be able to detail exactly how Sheriff Department deputies are engaging in their safety checks. I should also note that at a recent meeting, Commander Montoya, the representative of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department who attended the meetings, acknowledged that these safety checks are not designed to ensure that people are alive, which under consent decree is supposed to be the primary purpose. I would also note that 38 people have died in county custody in the jails so far this year. The other thing that body-worn cameras might do is help track what the deputies actually do on their job. So the question is whether the body-worn cameras are only going to be turned on when deputies engage in encounters with people in the jails, or whether it would also help us understand what they do even when they are away from there. So one of the things that we have consistently noted is, or two of the things we have consistently noted are, one, we consistently find when we wander around the jails that some sheriff stations are empty and other sheriff stations have 8 to 10 to 12 people congregating around them. And hopefully body-worn cameras would help us determine what's going on, because it presents, we think, a significant safety problem for both the sheriffs and the people in jail custody when some stations are empty and other stations have multiple deputies congregated. The second thing that we've found is that deputies often are watching not cameras revealing what's going on in the modules or in people's cells, but rather they're watching television or worse, things that look like sexually explicit videos. In fact, I was there when when was it, May of last year, we observed 8 sheriff deputies sitting in a dark room with a large screen television, and we glimpsed what they were watching, and it was women in a state of undress. The Sheriff Department has yet to report back to us the result of their investigation into that. So depending on what the body-worn cameras pick up, it might be useful to see what they pick up. So that would be a useful aspect. I'd also I mean, I'd also point out that um, the video taken in the documentary Alabama Solution is illegal to take in Los Angeles um, county jails. In fact, the Civil Brand Commission is prohibited from taking recording devices into the jails. It's one of the reasons why I think the Civil Brand Commission is so important, because we are able to go in unannounced and unaccompanied and witness conditions. And again, I think it's important that we are members of the public because, and I actually think it's, it would, so because otherwise, the worry is that we would get inured to the conditions in there and fail to be shocked when we see tiles falling off the ceiling of Twin Towers Correctional Center or jails, jail cells in which people with significant mental health problems have been living for 3 days with the walls covered in feces, or rat droppings around the common areas in Men's Central Jail, or the black mold over the ventilation in Men's Central Jail, or the men when they flush the urinals in their dormitories, having the water then back up out of holes, drainage holes in the floor. So for these reasons, we find the report or the recommendations of the executive officer vague and misleading, and that's why we voted to reject its proposal to sunset the Civil Brand Commission. I'm happy to take any questions that the commissioners have.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the incredible work of the Civil Brand Commission, now going on 67 years. We appreciate that work. We also note that the settlement entered into by LA County, interestingly, covers those same 67 years involving abuse in probation and custody settings. So maybe if there had been greater attention and greater investment in oversight, especially of an independent nature, we wouldn't be facing a $4 billion settlement about which substantial questions of fraud now appear to have led to the displacement of the county CEO, and about which the supervisors are asking questions about fraud as part of that overall settlement package, and which itself is triggering curtailment discussions in the budget of LA County agencies across the board, including our own commission. So I just want to note that it is affecting all of us. This is not in some silo. This is not some remote problem involving budget numbers or spreadsheets. This problem is affecting all of us, just as the attack on integrity and on oversight capability is threatening all of us in Los Angeles County. So just know that the concerns of the Civil Brand Commission are taken seriously by this commission and by the stakeholders here with us today at this non-meeting of our commission, and that we look forward to making sure that oversight is preserved and protected and not muzzled and not unplugged or sabotaged in LA County. Are there any comments by other commissioners about your report back?
Yes, as the chair of the Jails Committee, I truly want to thank you for the work that you do, because it's not all the time that the commissioners can get to the jails. And like you say, your position is very unique because you can go in unaccompanied and have direct conversation with some of the men, and things that you see in areas that you're able to go in, we cannot do. So your commission is very, very important, and I don't think it needs to be sunsetted.
Thank you for your support.
With that, I think we can thank you and welcome you back to future actual meetings of our commission, including on November 20th here at St. Anne's. But just know that we are looking, even while protecting your independence, to provide some meaningful staff support for following through. I think as you're hearing from us now, not just as individual commissioners, but just know that our staff, led by Charmaine Mosley here, are interested in providing meaningful follow-through on the reports and findings of your commission so that they do not languish and that they do not go unheeded and that findings do not go unaddressed by LASD as so sadly we've seen some findings and reports do. So just know that we look forward to being full partners and siblings in carrying out this oversight work in custody settings.
Appreciate that.
I do want to welcome back to discussion with COC members and stakeholders here, John Barkley, who is going to provide an update today about the Prison Rape Elimination Act and progress or lack thereof that we see in custody settings in LA County. Now 22 years on after the enactment of this federal law. John, welcome back to COC, and we look forward to your findings and your update for us today.
Thank you. Good morning. I don't know if everybody can see the slide. There we go. Okay. So, all right. I put this slide up first because I think it's extremely important that the commission and the community know that LASD's Prison Rape Elimination Act team receives and has not received any federal funding. So the funding cuts, the government shutdown has not, will not affect us as we continue to work toward making our facilities safe for our residents incarcerated of sexual abuse, sexual harassment. So the LASD's PREA team and sexual safety programs are funded by the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors and not by the federal government. LASD has not been affected in any way by the federal government budget cuts and the current federal shutdown. LASD has not and will never remove LASD's sexual safety programs. I think that's important for everyone to hear because the whole purpose of the Prison Rape Elimination Act is to prevent, detect, respond, and monitor sexual harassment and sexual abuse within our facilities, and that's what we're doing. Next slide, please. LASD's sexual abuse and sexual harassment resources and processes. The LASD PREA team regularly provides training to the leadership and staff of every patrol station and custody facility to ensure our PREA resources are made available to our resident population. The LA County Office of Inspector General audits, monitors, and provides recommendations on LASD's PREA-related processes and resources. I think this is important to note because I confirmed this in July when I had the opportunity to be at the PREA Coordinators Conference. We are the only county, and even in a state environment, where we're fortunate that our auditors of the Prison Rape Elimination Act are employees of the OIG. They are certified auditors. So because of their involvement with the Sheriff's Department, they are constant auditor eyes, auditor monitors. And that is not done anywhere else. In other jurisdictions, you would pay for an auditor and it's a brief moment. So we have a very wonderful opportunity that someone that is not with the Sheriff's Department, someone with the OIG who is trained, well, they have more than one, but they are trained certified auditors are constant watching over what we're doing. Next slide. I want to go into the reporting process because I don't think everyone understands what we have set up. Anytime that a resident, an incarcerated individual, we'll go with them first, makes any kind of allegation of sexual abuse or sexual harassment, it is documented, no matter what that is. If they make an allegation, it is documented, it is written down. So that is done, and those are documented. Now, here again, we have some things set up that if the person incarcerated doesn't not want to talk to us, the staff, they can report it to medical, they can report it to the chaplain, they can report it to a volunteer, they can report it to a contractor. We train all those individuals on what the Prison Rape Elimination Act is and how they take the report and what they do. If they don't trust any of those individuals, we have it set up in our phone system for those incarcerated to call Crime Stoppers by hitting *21. Now, if you're familiar with our inmate phone system, most calls you have to put in a PIN number if you are incarcerated. We have these set up that a PIN number is not required. They can just dial *21. They don't have to identify themselves if they don't want to. They're not asked to identify themselves. And then lastly, which is another thing that we have in this county, and was just mentioned with the idea of we have organizations that walk around our facilities that have the opportunity to talk with these residents. We have the OIG, we have the ACLU, we have the Civil Brand Commission, and that's another way for the incarcerated individual that feels that that wants to make the allegation of sexual harassment or sexual abuse can tell. Then lastly, you're familiar, I'm sure, with the inmate grievance form. So if an inmate's grievance form, an incarcerated individual, a resident can use that. They can use the medical grievance form. So we have set up a lot of different ways for the people in our custody to be able to make allegations. Next slide, please. Let me go over the investigation process. I told you that all of our allegations, no matter what they are documented. They're documented on what we call a PREA allegation alert. So the allegation is made, and the sergeant collecting the grievance or the allegation conducts the initial inquiry and then enters it into the PREA allegation alert database. And this must be done by the end of the shift. We have this set up because we don't want anything to labor on. We know that we've got individuals that might be on and then that be off for 2 or 3 days. So we have it set up. That's mandated that before their shift ends, they have to put that report in. And let me tell you where that report goes. I think this is important to note. The report is, let me put on my glasses here. When collecting, the sergeant enters the allegation, the pre-alert is instantly mailed to LASD leadership, goes to the Office of Inspector General, the reason being, as I talked about earlier, they are our auditors, and it goes to the PREA compliance manager that is assigned and embedded into that facility. These PREA compliance managers are PREA team sergeants who have received specialized investigative training from the National Institute of Corrections on the investigation of sexual abuse and sexual harassment in confinement settings. Other individuals that have received that, all of our investigators with IA and with ICIB have received that training, as well as our detectives that do the investigations of inmate on inmate sexual abuse. They have all received that training. Every case is investigated. The results of the investigation are immediately sent to the appropriate facility's captain for evaluation. So then from that point, it is determined by the investigator whether and these are words that are coming from the standard, it's the case is either substantiated, unsubstantiated, or unfounded. Next slide. The corrective action process after every allegation or after every investigation is completed, we must do what is called a sexual abuse incident review. So any allegation that is either found to be substantiated or unsubstantiated of sexual abuse, the PREA standards direct LASD to conduct the sexual abuse incident review for all cases determined to be substantiated or unsubstantiated. The PREA team, the Office of Inspector General, and the responsible facilities leadership convene to identify areas that can be approved, whether that's policy, whether that's structural, whether that's personnel, looking at staffing. The resident is notified of the process. If the victim is still in our custody, we will advise the resident of the outcome of the investigation. That would even be done before this sexual abuse incident review. As soon as the investigation is done, the incarcerated individual is notified. The victim, if the victim is no longer in our custody and they have left some kind of address with us, or we have an address on file, then the outcome is mailed to them. Next slide. Another interesting thing that people don't realize in the whole process is, as soon as an incarcerated individual, a resident, makes an allegation of sexual abuse or sexual harassment, there's an immediately retaliation prevention process. 30 days from the date the resident submits the allegation of sexual abuse, a member of the PREA team conducts an in-person interview and reviews discipline, housing, and programming records to ensure there has been no retaliation. The idea being is we want our residents incarcerated to know that if they have made an allegation, that we are monitoring to make sure that there's no retaliation done on them because they have made that allegation. This process is repeated every 60 days and 90 days, and if we feel it can be extended longer than that. PREA training. Once every year, all LASD employees must watch the LASD's PREA awareness training video. All volunteers, contractors, chaplains must watch LASD's PREA awareness training video. LASD's PREA awareness training video teaches everyone to report all sexual abuse and sexual harassment allegations to a sergeant immediately. So this training is done or is watched by everyone that is an employee, not just if you're in custody. We have people that are working at HOJ because we feel it's important that they understand and that they know what the Prison Rape Elimination Act and what their role is if they learn of, alleged sexual abuse or sexual harassment, or if they're told of it. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot, I hope you can see, but this is a snapshot from our transparency webpage where we quarterly put the numbers of the cases, and it's split into 4: allegations of sexual abuse, inmate on inmate, staff on inmate; allegations of sexual harassment, inmate on inmate, staff on inmate. So we do these quarterly, and you can see on these numbers, because this is from our last quarter that ended September 30th, inmate on inmate, we have 25 pending. Pending meaning they're still under investigation. All of our investigations are going to be prompt, thorough, and objective, but sometimes to be thorough and objective, it's going to take a much longer time. But these are numbers, and then on the left you see we also on our webpage we put the definition so everyone understands. And I think this was actually a recommendation from the COC when I met with you last, and we added that the definitions of what substantiated, unsubstantiated, unfounded, and the definitions of sexual abuse and sexual harassment as dictated by the standard. I know I've given a lot of information, but I hope that educates and gives you more information on how we are approaching when an incarcerated individual tells us that they have been sexual harassed or sexual abused.
Thank you, John.
It's hard to see you.
Obstructed view seats here. I just want to ask, are there any questions about the grievance procedure or about the reporting or about what the retaliation prevention system is aimed at stopping, which is lashing out at those who report or might report a PREA violation. Any questions by commissioners? Any questions by the OIG?
No, I don't have any questions. I mean, I would, so as far as auditing, the auditing for PREA is really, really rigorous. And the only thing that OIG has audited so far, truly audited per PREA standards, are 3 station jails. And so the jail facilities themselves have not been audited. But I would note that the recommendations that we made regarding our audits, that the department has looked at those in a department-wide view, so that if there was something that we recommended for a station jail, they consider or are considering implementing policies based on those recommendations department-wide as opposed to in a limited capacity, which is, of course, the way they should be looking at those recommendations. So
I just have to ask in conclusion here, and looking at the numbers, do you ever find a PREA complaint substantiated? To see this number of complaints followed through in your grid and to have 0 substantiated, it kind of beggars credulity that that number of complaints could be raised, and that none would be found substantiated. It's just a red flag. And I just want to ask, what does it take to have a substantiated complaint if you're finding 0 substantiation?
Well, I think we can address that through, there are still that are ones that are pending, and we can look back and get with you to give you numbers of when those cases are closed. If a case goes, let's say if it's talking about a staff person, it's then going to be referred to ICIB if it's criminal, or IA. So then that investigation is in their hands. But I think what we will look at is a total of our numbers, maybe, because it might not happen in that quarter. What you're seeing of those quarterly numbers, the outcomes of those investigations.
So what I hear you saying is that there's a gauntlet that these complaints have to go through in order to be reviewed or concluded on, and that the 0 number is those that have been substantiated within that quarter or within some time frame. So they may be languishing. I think the word that you might have been looking for earlier in your presentation, that they might be languishing while they try to run that gauntlet of substantiation or investigation. How many different hoops do they have to jump through for you to find them substantiated? And how, over what period of time would we have to look to get an answer about the conclusion of a complaint?
The only ones that are going to take any time would be ones that are involving staff that if they have been referred to IA or ICIB. Those involving inmate on inmate allegations of sexual abuse are investigated by the investigators, and those are completed. then that's when we would have the sexual abuse incident review.
Well, how many different hoops does a complaint involving staff have to go through?
The investigation is done by the PREA compliance manager. Then that is then referred to the captain, and the captain of that facility then determines if that's going to go to the internal affairs or ICIB, if that's what you're asking of the process.
What I hear in that is that there may be some cracks that this could fall through, or there may be some prospect for delay in that review process. I'm just raising a red flag that we have 0 substantiated cases shown here, and I'm also hearing that there may be multiple stages whereby something could get either delayed or derailed. Regardless of the willingness and even the integrity of any individual person, including yourself, in the process, it's just a little worrisome and raises some concern that with multiple channels, and as you say, the investigators investigating themselves, there may be some room for the short circuiting of what was intended as a process of trustworthiness and transparency for this reporting. We certainly don't want the delay in a report or a complaint to undercut what protections you have put in place against retaliation either, which is just as noxious a threat as the initial attack or possible PREA violation or attempted sexual assault. So I just, what's the average timeline for the processing of a PREA complaint involving a staff person?
It's going to be different. There's not going to be an average because every allegation is different. Every situation is different. The thing that we're mandated to do is to do the investigation promptly and to do it thoroughly. That's what we're mandated to do. Going back to your comment, investigators don't investigate themselves. These PREA sergeants, these PREA compliance managers are not, they work in my department, they work in the facility, located in the facility, because that's where they need to be. So they're not investigating themselves or investigating their people that they work within the same facility.
And I realize there's training in place. I realize there's expertise that has been developed and best practices that have been documented, and there's training to those best practices. But I do just have to ask, is there any incentive, given that site-based location for the person, or is there any channel of potential pressure on them to delay or not report or follow through on such a complaint, given the proximity to the existing command structure, that they may have other incentives to not create the shadow of a complaint hanging over their heads?
No, sir, I don't think so. And I think that's the other reason why we've added in there, I talked about earlier, when that PREA allegation alert is done and sent, it is emailed. Members of the OIG get that entire allegation. They're fully aware of the allegation when we know about it. They get it at the same time it comes into my email box.
Okay, and I guess I just want to ask Commissioner or let's go to Commissioner Newhouse.
And, yes, sir.
I guess I'm just not following the process and there's too much jargon here. Are you saying that if there's an inmate who makes a complaint and alleges that some staff member assaulted them, that in the review of that investigation is one of that person's supervisors?
No, sir.
Okay. Who decides whether it goes forward? Who reviews it?
The investigation is done by the sergeant who
Okay.
works for me, the PREA compliance manager,
Okay.
does the investigation. Then that investigation is sent to the captain, goes through the grievance process. There's a lieutenant that works for that captain, then it goes to that captain.
And is that captain in the chain of command over the affected officers or individuals?
Captain runs that facility. That's
Okay.
the way it's done with all grievances, any grievance against staff.
I understand, but particularly with respect to alleged sexual assault, my concern, and I think if I'm understanding the chair's comments, is that person is not completely objective, are they? And it sounds like it's possible that potentially meritorious complaints could be found unfounded, in part because the people that ultimately make the decision not to proceed further are not totally objective. They have an interest in not seeing that complaint founded. Is that a fair inference, or am I wrong? I could be wrong. I don't understand the process.
I don't agree. I think the captains that are running the facilities want a safe and secure facility. And I don't think they're going to overlook one of their staff.
Well, respectfully, I disagree with you, and I will point out that the same problem arose with sexual assault in the U.S. Army and our military forces when the complaints were being reviewed by commanding officers within the same command structure, because they have an inherent bias not to see these matters found to be founded and to terminate investigation. At the end of the day, if that happens, it's to the detriment of the department, because the department needs to have an objective review to prevent, if these practices are going on, to cut them off and to see appropriate handling and prosecution in some cases. It's in the benefit of the department to do that. So if you have individuals in the chain of command who have an incentive not to, and the chairman makes a very, very good point. When you have this many complaints and you have 0 that are founded, there is something wrong with the process, I suggest to you, sir, that is somehow biasing, so they're getting cut off. They're not being followed up with. There should be a totally independent review. That's my view, based upon many years in law enforcement, I might add.
And if I could just add, we brought this very issue up with the Professional Standards Division regarding all complaints, that when you have people within the chain of command deciding what should go to IAB, what should go to ICIB, what triggers an investigation, that there is some bias, especially when the captain, they know these people. And so it would be much better if it was, if all complaints were investigated by people who are outside of the chain of command. The other thing that you brought up with regard to delay is that the Sheriff's Department is the only agency that does not concurrently conduct a criminal investigation and an IA investigation. And that's because of a settlement agreement that was made with the unions called Gates-Johnson, which we've reported on. And because of that, the criminal investigation has to conclude before the administrative investigation can proceed. Now, obviously, if someone's accused of a crime, they have a Fifth Amendment right. They cannot be compelled to make a statement that can be used against them in the criminal case. But you can concurrently conduct an IA and an ICIB. Also, even under Gates-Johnson, you can interview anybody who's not the suspect concurrently, and the department chooses not to do that. We strongly recommend and continue to recommend that Gates-Johnson be revisited with the unions. I mean, I will tell you that when there was the LAPD corruption case with regard to Perez and all of the corruption in LAPD, there was a concurrent investigation. The DA's office had a clean team and a dirty team. So the dirty team, which is not necessarily the best thing to call it, but the people who got the compelled statements and knew what the compelled statements were did not, though the other team, the clean team, didn't have access to any of those compelled statements. And those statements cannot be used in the criminal investigation. But conducting these investigations concurrently is of great importance, especially in this context, because what happens is that the people who were incarcerated at the time that this happens eventually get out of custody. They may not want to deal with this anymore because they're no longer in that situation. And the delay is so disheartening and they lose hope. And so by the time that internal investigation gets to them, you know, if the DA's office rejects it, and I'm going to say that there are cases that the DA's office rejects that I look at as a former DA and I wouldn't reject them. And so all of these things play into how we get to the point where it's zero. And so these things have to be addressed in order to fix these investigations.
Thank you. Commissioner Callaway, before we wrap up.
I was just wondering, so it, with the data, is it all on the website?
Yes, sir.
Is it all the years are on there?
Well, it's
What-
only going back until I want to say 2020 or 2021. When we,
And then for you, how long have you been?
I've been at this position 6 years.
6 years. And so in your recollection, like Q3 of 24, it's 0 inmate and staff inmate. Same thing in 24, Q4 of 24, and then there's 1 in the Q1 of this year and none in the Q2. It feels like, I mean, it just feels like that inmate to inmate, if that's a faster process, that you would still, if it was all objective and that there would be some substantiated ones actually to trickle out.
Yes, sir, you would think, but many of those, as the lady with the Inspector General's office commented, that's dictated on whether the DA takes the case. Our investigator.
Oh, so this isn't saying that Priya agreed that it was founded. This is saying if the DA actually accepts the case and convicts.
The inmate on inmate would be then, those would be in the category of unsubstantiated, because we're still going to have the sexual abuse incident review after that allegation. But if the DA decides that they're not going to prosecute the case with inmate on inmate, then it was going to be an unsubstantiated.
I would say that it would. Do y'all track if you actually thought it was founded, but the DA didn't convict or didn't take the case?
We would have all those investigations, yes.
Okay.
And maybe that needs to be in the number.
I would say. Because I think that what the problem is that the way that the chart is written like this means that I'm thinking your organization did not find anything.
I understand.
So like that would be some context that probably to add to the report.
We can get back with you on that.
And I think the concerns raised here about conflicts of interest are substantial. I think that's a consequential issue that needs to be redressed. And I just want to appeal to you and to the Sheriff's Department chain of command that this is something that we're looking at, and to take steps to redress this issue of conflicts of interest that are built into the process, in addition to the problem of computation and how they are characterized with regard to follow-up and the status of any possible redress. So there's both a conflict of interest concern and there is a recording and data reporting issue about the process of substantiation. But I really hope that you hear this loud and clear from this commission, that this needs to be looked at, and it is unacceptable to have no substantiated cases reported. And as Commissioner Newhouse said, that is not a problem with the people making complaints. That is a problem with a process if you're not showing substantiation. That means you have a gauntlet that cannot be traversed by people who are desperately in need of redress and who are some of the most vulnerable people in our county. We cannot find that acceptable, and that when we see evidence like this that raises red flags, it is on our conscience to see progress made and reported back at the soonest possible opportunity. So please, we look forward to welcoming you back and maybe to having some reporting about how what looks like an untraversable gauntlet might be satisfied by people seeking some redress through the channels that you are responsible for.
So there was one last thing. So I think that the issue is very large and it's systemic. It's not PREA specifically, it is the actual complaint and grievance process written that way to where it's just that whole process needs, I'm hoping that maybe we can get the draft from the meet and confer, because that's right now, if they're inking a new deal, that should be something that's probably put into the process to ensure conflict of interest don't happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Barkley. Thank you so much for being here. We do look forward and welcoming you back. I think with that, we are set to conclude. I want to just ask Tracy, are there any final public comments before we might adjourn this forum?
We do have public comments, and we also had the virtual deputy presentation from the Sheriff's
We're
Department.
going to put that to a future agenda.
Okay. As far as public comments, and we have a public comment that is in person from T. Carter. T. Carter, if you could go to the mic, please.
Yes, so in regard to the complaint process, I came here last October, it's been a year, and I'm still not understanding why I don't have any responses from this board. I spoke to the Board of Supervisors. They said that what I presented, if there was something that this panel could not do, that this panel is not barred, and we're not barred from notifying them. So this panel told me there's nothing they can do about my matter, and the ball stops there. And I met with the Board of Supervisors, and they said that's not true. Where a doctor labeled me as schizophrenic, as they do other many African Americans at LA County Jail, and labeled me as schizophrenic with no clothing of other sorts. Then 3 days later, I'm told I'm not schizophrenic. The doctor, the nurse, I should say, is still working at LA County Jail. So this panel, you guys are here, and I presented this information, but at other times, this panel would tell people here that it's hard to get evidence. It's hard to get information from the Sheriff Department. But I presented this a year ago. And each time I come here, this panel that's supposed to be looking into things or be an advocate story for a certain matter, you guys are not doing what what's been stipulated from the Board of Supervisors as a part of your appointment. And I just feel it's a form of bias that I presented this over and over and over again, and the nurse is still working. So if there was a female getting raped right now at LA County Jail and her family came and said something, you guys would still be doing a year-long investigation saying we'll just let the female get raped. And I just think it's a little biased that the things that you guys could do that you aren't doing. So once again, I reported this last October. The nurse is still getting paid, and there is no sense of urgency. This board have not provided anything to the Board of Supervisors, and I would like to know why. And I'm also now requesting a written response from the panel as to why my matter was not presented to the Board of Supervisors. If you guys are, if the panel yourself are saying you had no oversight or could not do anything. So you're basically said my matter had no sense of urgency, and this warranted no concern of safety. So I would like a written response. I was told I could do that request in person. So I'm requesting a written response from the panel as to why my matter was ignored for a year.
Thank you. Next, we'll go online to public comments. We have public comment from Deanna Brock. Deanna, you have been unmuted. Deanna? We can hear you.
Okay. If the LASD is required to conduct a sexual incident review complaint, I'm assuming that these requirements would apply to individuals that are arrested at the stations but post bail. My son was falsely actually arrested by the Norwalk station, a deputy that we all know has pled guilty to felony charges and is actually awaiting sentencing. My son is transgender. When he was arrested and taken to the Norwalk station, he was required to expose his genitalia to one of the officers because they were trying to decide if they were going to put him in with females or males as they were going to transfer him. They were aware he was going to be bailed out, but they claimed that they needed to see his genitalia to decide which jail to be sending him to. There was no official incident review of that situation. And my concern is that at the Norwalk station, everything that went on with my son, including him being beat up and falsely accused by a deputy, there was a cover-up of 7 employees that included captains, sergeants, and other deputies. So when you say there's a complaint box for inmates that is then collected by the sergeant on duty at the end of the day, that doesn't make me feel very comfortable. I mean, when you're saying that when things are reported and they're reported to your captains or sergeants or whatever, and then reported to you, like the commission was saying, they can't be investigating themselves. This is a biased way of doing things. And I think there needs to be change with this way, this whole system. It's wrong.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Vanessa Perez. Vanessa, you have been unmuted. Vanessa? We can hear you.
Okay, I just want to quickly say that I know for a fact in the San Dimas station, the deputies are indeed having the inmates take off their clothes and humiliate them with their pants down. I have made a complaint about this before, so I just want to touch on that real quick and mention that it is true. They are humiliating and having inmates take their pants down and humiliating them at these times, especially San Dimas station. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Allie Rubenfield. Allie, you have been unmuted. Allie?
Allie Rubenfeld with the Loyola Anti-Racism Center and Check the Sheriff. We've heard multiple times throughout today's meeting about the meet confer process. We heard it in the context of the Antelope Valley settlement regarding complaints. We heard about body-worn cameras in custody. We heard it about Measure R being delayed for 5 years. We also know that the use of force policy was delayed by meet and confer. The implementation of Penal Code Section 13670 was delayed through meet and confer. And it also halted the OIG's investigation into deputy gangs. We're still waiting for that investigation, even though the Court of Appeal said that this process should only take 60 days. This commission should be on high alert that the meet and confer process threatens to delay implementing AB 847. And with that, I request that the COC review and index all policies and matters that are currently in the meet and confer process and include the start date so we can monitor the progress of that process and see just how long it does take versus the appellate court's assessment that it should only be taking 60 days for something like this. The extended processes delay reforms, allow LASD to evade compliance with state law and waste taxpayer dollars. Separately, $10 million this week went to LASD for the renovation of Pitchess West. Meanwhile, the county is contemplating collapsing our oversight system under the auspices of curtailments and budget cuts that are a product of the very behavior and conditions that these bodies are designed to expose and eradicate. I urge this commission to band together with the Civil Brand Commission to make sure that the board supports oversight and does not sunset it. Demand a detailed plan that allows the Civil Brand Commission to continue its unique and essential function and reporting, and that the COC can be used to bolster that work rather than eliminating the commission altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, there are no further public comments on this item. Thank you.
With that, I would just ask if one of the commenters, T. Carter, could provide documents that you have for the complaint to the Office of Inspector General, who's here, eager to receive any documents you have about that complaint. I want to thank all of the members of the public who are here for this forum that we are happy to host. I want to thank the people who regulated the temperature in the room so that we were able to take off our parkas in the midst of the meeting. I want to thank all the members of the LASD staff who are here. I want to note that we have upcoming events with the commission. Coming up this weekend is the beginning of the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement Conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at which I and many of us will be participating. I want to also note Election Day, the 4th of November, happens to be the date of our LASD PRIA Town Hall. So some of the very discussions that we've just had here will have another chance for airing with community input. That is Tuesday, November 4th at, I believe, 1 o'clock in the afternoon? 1 to 3, yes. Then the commission has a special training on deputy-involved shootings on the 18th of November, and I invite everyone back to a genuine, true meeting of this commission with a quorum on Thursday, November 20th, right here, 9 a.m., back at St. Anne's. With that, this meeting, or this non-meeting, is in adjournment. I look forward to seeing all of you up the road. Thank you.